Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Mind Map. Today's topic of discussion is Lokpal and Lokayukta. First of all, we will discuss about the introduction of the topic, need of Ombudsman institution in India, evolution of Lokpal and Lokayukts in India, constitutional provisions of Lokpal and Lokayukta, limitations and way forward. First of all, moving on to the introduction of the topic. The Ombudsman institution is the first democratic institution created for grievance redressal. It originated in Sweden in 1809 and is a Scandinavian institution. Guyana becomes the first developing nation to adopt the Ombudsman concept in 1966. Now let's discuss about need of Ombudsman institution in India. To improve the maladministration that is eroding the nation's foundation and hindering administration's task, to handle the corruption that is the root cause of other major problems, to strengthen the role and responsibilities of anti-corruption agencies, and to increase the internal transparency and accountability within these agencies. Now let's have a look at the evolution of Lokpal and Lokayukta in India. The terms Lokpal and Lokayukta were coined by Dr. L.M. Singhvi. It was recommended by the first Administrative Reforms Commission of India for the first time in 1966. The Lokpal Bill was presented for the first time in 1968. It was introduced 8 times in Lok Sabha but was not passed. In 1971, Maharashtra became the first state to establish the office of Lokayukta at state level. In 2005, the second Administrative Reforms Commission, chaired by Veerappa Moily, calls for the prompt establishment of the Lokpal office. In 2011, a group of ministers led by Pranab Mukherjee was formed to address corruption and consider the Lokpal bill proposal. Finally, Lokpal and Lokayukta Act was passed in 2013 by the Parliament after a nationwide India Against Corruption movement led by Anna Hazare. Constitutional provisions of Lokpal. Retired Justice Pinaki Chandra Ghosh was appointed as the first Lokpal of India on March 19, 2019. Lokpal Act of 2013. It is an anti-corruption legislation in India. It establishes the institution of Lokpal at the central level. It also mandates the establishment of Lokayukta at the state level. The Act provides a mechanism to inquire into allegations of corruption against public officials, including the Prime Minister, ministers, and members of Parliament. Selection process and appointment. The Lokpal shall consist of a chairperson and a maximum of 8 members, of which 50% shall be judicial members. 50% of the members shall be from SC, ST, OBCs, women and minorities. The Department of Personnel and Training prepares a list of candidates interested in being the chairperson or members of the Lokpal. The list is submitted to a proposed 8-member search committee headed by a former Supreme Court judge. The search committee reviews the list and shortlist names for consideration to the selection panel headed by the Prime Minister. The selection panel has the authority to choose the final candidates for appointment as the chairperson and members of the Lokpal. The appointment is done through a warrant by the President under his hand and seal. They shall hold the office for a term of 5 years or till the age of 70 years. Powers and jurisdiction. It covers Prime Minister, ministers, MPs, central government officers, and officials of groups A, B, C, and D. It has supervisory powers and can issue directions to the CBI. The inquiry wing of Lokpal possesses the powers of a civil court. It can confiscate assets, proceeds, receipts, and benefits acquired through corrupt means under specific circumstances. It has power to recommend transfer or suspension of public servants connected to corruption allegations lies with Lokpal. It can give directions to prevent the destruction of records during preliminary inquiries. Prime Minister is exempt on corruption allegations related to international relations, security, public order, atomic energy, and space. Ministers and MPs are not under Lokpal's jurisdiction for matters pertaining to their statements or votes in Parliament. It includes individuals in charge of bodies, societies set up by central acts or financed or controlled by the central government, as well as those involved in abetting bribery. Now moving on to constitutional provisions of Lokayukta. According to Lokpal and Lokayukta Act 2013, all states in India are required to set up the office of the Lokayukta within 1 year from the commencement of the Act. The effectiveness of the state Lokayukta vary from state to state due to differences in structure, scope, and jurisdiction. Selection process and appointment. It will be a 3-member body headed by a retired Supreme Court judge or a High Court Chief Justice. Appointment will be done by the governor in consultation with the Chief Justice of the concerned High Court, the leader of the opposition in the Legislative Assembly. Functions. Its functions are the same at the state level as the Lokpal at the central level. It represents annually to the governor of the state. It is responsible to the state legislature. Now moving on to limitations. Only some states have established the Lokayukta as required by the Act. Presence of political influence in the appointment process. Unclear criteria for appointing a Lokpal leaves room for manipulation. Lack of concrete immunity discouraging people from reporting corruption. Exclusion of judiciary from the ambit of the Lokpal. Lack of constitutional backing and provisions for adequate appeals. Discretion of the states in the appointment of Lokayukta. Now lastly, let's discuss about the way forward. Strengthen the Ombudsman institution in terms of functional autonomy and manpower availability. Increase transparency and promote citizens' rights to information and empowerment. Develop good leadership willing to subject itself to public scrutiny. Embrace the principle of less government and more governance. Ensure financial, administrative and legal independence of Lokpal and Lokayukta. Conduct transparent appointments to minimize the possibility of unsuitable individuals. And establish decentralized institutions with appropriate accountability mechanisms to prevent excessive concentration of power. Now moving on to practice question. First of all, prelims question. Consider the following statement regarding Lokpal. 1. It has term of 6 years or 70 years, whichever is earlier. 2. It has supervisory powers to direct CBI. 3. Pinaki Chandra Ghosh was appointed as the first Lokpal of India. How many statement or statements is or are correct? Only 1, only 2, all 3 or none? And now mains question. What are the limitations of the Lokpal and Lokayukta institutions in India? Discuss the challenges and areas for improvement. So that's all for today. Stay tuned for the next episode. Thanks for watching.